Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today in light of everything that's happening in the world. Today we'll be discussing the importance of becoming a duct expert with our industry expert, Ken Summers. He is the Vice President of Training for Dealer Development at Aeroseal and Comfort Institute. We will touch on his bio here in a little bit. Just know that the recording is going on right now, so at the end of this, about an hour after this live event, you should receive it as an attendee. Also at the end, there will be a survey where we will collect your BPI numbers for any CEU credits that you guys are looking for to collect those and roster you in correctly. Throughout this presentation, feel free to ask questions in the question box. And without further ado, I will let Ken take it away.
Thank you, Billy. Hey guys, thanks for all showing up here today. I know it's kind of tough right now as we're going through maybe different times we've had before. But what we want to talk about is becoming what I like to say a duct expert. And here's why I think you want to stay with us for the full presentation. When you start understanding ductwork and how it works out there, well, one of the things that we can do, we can solve a lot of the common comfort problems that we have in homes. But in addition to that, we can also solve a lot of IAQ problems. And I think that if we understand this, going forward in the next couple of months, I think this is going to be something that can really help us in the HVAC industry. I'm not using that as a scare, but I think people are going to be more concerned about the air they breathe and how it gets into their home. So I think we can understand ductwork and use that to our benefit. The other thing, by understanding ducts, we can stop a lot of these callbacks that we get in these complaints. You know, when I've talked to contractors about issues that they're having with new equipment that's being installed, I find that probably 90% of the time it has nothing to do with the equipment. There's something else going on, and the ducts are always involved in it. So if I understand ductwork, I can take care of these a lot of times on the front end versus the back end of it. You know, everybody talks about boxes. We've got tons of competition out there. One of the things about ductwork, if you understand it and you start talking about this even on sales calls, you make your company different than the rest. Everybody's focusing on that particular box they're going to put in. We're going to focus on more of the issues that happen in the homes and making sure that what they're going to buy today is going to be able to do the job of what they're looking for. I'm doing a training class here today, and one of the things that we brought up was the fact that, you know, when somebody puts a new piece of equipment in, there's always something in their mind, in the back of their head. They're going, boy, I can hardly wait to get this new system in because now it's going to take care of this problem a whole lot better than the old one did. It probably won't unless it was broken and now we have heat or cooling. Other issues that are rising are still going to be the same problem. And most of it, again, comes from ductwork. But one of the biggest reasons is this is a great way to generate leads. You know, we'll show you at the end how you can, depending on how the size of your company, the amount of service technicians you have, you can bring in 12 to 30 or even greater of really good leads to your business at a real low cost. And that, to me, is a big benefit that we have out there. Bottom line, overall, we're going to become more profitable in your business. So my name is Ken, like Billy said. I started out in HVAC back in 1980. I was going to school. I really wanted to be an architect. But the architectural field seemed like it was kind of dropping, so I started selling HVAC residentially. But my passion was to take something from a piece of paper and watch it stand up. So most of my career I spent in the commercial industrial side of things. But in '94, I got a phone call from a company called Retrotech, and that's really what changed me on how I think today. They introduced me to a brand new term that was called home and duct performance contracting. I went to work for them in '94, and I worked through '98. Running the HVAC department out in Bellingham, Washington. But there was a growing need for more training, more support. And so I co-founded with the vice president of the company, a company called Comfort Institute back in 1998. We ran that business for years, training thousands of contractors across the country and in Canada on how buildings work, how duct systems work. And then in 2014, we actually sold our business to Aeroseal. And so today, like Billy says, I'm the vice president of training for dealer development at the Aeroseal companies. And we do everything from building science to Aeroseal training to duct design. So we're going to focus on the duct work. But I'd like to start out with just the basics here. In order for a home's heating and cooling system to work right, we've got to have three legs, okay? And they got to be strong. So the first leg we always look at is equipment. Not that I care about the equipment we put in. I think everybody builds pretty good stuff, but the sizing of the equipment, making sure we use the right numbers for our load counts. We don't want too big of equipment, and of course we don't want it too small. So that's very, very important. And I will say that most of the industry does a good job of that. And I think all manufacturers are building pretty good stuff. I mean, maybe somebody's got a better idea tomorrow, but the rest of the industry seems to catch up. But the other leg that we look at is called the thermal envelope. This is the element barrier, which is the siding and the roofing, of course. Then we've got our air barrier, which is the sheetrock on the inside of the home. And then we've got in between the two, we've got the insulation. This is the thermal side. That's very important to have a good working thermal envelope. But then on top of everything else, we need to have a really, really good duct system. The duct system is the foundation of the heating and cooling system. Without that good duct system, well, we just don't deliver the heat or the cooling that the equipment has provided. So we're going to spend our time looking at that today. And the first question I always ask, and I did it today when I was training these guys here, is that, can you tell me how much duct leakage should the system have that can leak air to the outside of the structure when the HVAC system is running? And no matter where I'm at, I always get different answers, but they all run anywhere from the correct answer sometimes to quite a bit of CFMs of air. But most of the time I get that quizzical look, like, well, I really don't know. Well, for years, we've never, including me, okay, we never really looked at the amount of duct leakage. We just assumed it happened and it wasn't a big deal. But back in 2005, ACCA came out with a standard called the Quality Installation Specification, and they gave us a number to look for. It was 6%, and they based that at a test pressure of 25 pascals or 1/10 of an inch of water column. And it's at the nominal fan speed of the HVAC system that's in the home out there. So let's go into a house that's got a 3-ton. 12,000 BTUs per ton, so I got 36,400 CFM per ton, so I've got 1,200 CFMs of air. 1,200 CFMs times 6% equals 72 CFMs. That's how much air I'm allowed to leak at a test pressure of 25 Pascal when the system is on to the outside of the home. And when you do the math, that works out to a 13 square inch hole in an outside wall. Now, when researchers started looking at ducts years ago, what they found out was if you just have 1 square inch of duct leakage to the outside, the impact is much greater than that. In fact, it's 30 times. And the reason why is because I got that great big fan that I throw down in the system out there, which I give them a mechanical pressure. So if I put that into something that we can all understand, a visual look, if I had 1 square inch of duct leakage to the outside in a home, that would be like finding the window upstairs in the house that's 30 inches wide and open at 1 inch. Now, that 1 inch window will be open, or that window will be open 24 hours out of the day, 365 days out of the year. But that's a 1 inch. If I want to meet the standards, or what I like to say code today, that same window for that 3-ton could be open 13 inches. So imagine going home today, taking a window that's 30 inches wide and open at 13 inches tall, if you had a 3-ton air conditioner, and just leaving it open for the next year, and see how that HVAC system is going to work. Of course, we wouldn't do that. We understand that we're going to have issues with that. But here's the problem. When we started looking at ducts, or when I started looking at ducts, what I found out was the average home had about 50 square inches of duct leakage to the outside. Now, that still happens today. Yesterday, I was doing a virtual training with a company out in the East Coast. We did a test on the home, and that house had 66 square inches of duct leakage, both supply and return. But if I looked at 50 square inches, that would be like having 5 windows that were 30 inches wide, open 10 inches apiece. Imagine the impact that it's going to have on that house. But here's the puzzle that we all struggle with as HVAC contractors. How far should we go with this? Okay. Well, let's take a look at what you do already. You're selling HVAC equipment. You know how to size it. You know how to install it. I encourage you to understand thermal envelope and building science. I'm not saying you have to fix it, but be aware of insulation in the home. Be aware of what we call the air barrier. Understand how it works in the interactions that it has with your heating and cooling system. But become a duct expert. It's the extension of my HVAC system. And you possibly may have to add a little bit of testing of some kind to your business. I'm not talking huge tests, all-day tests, but I'm talking some simple things that we can do. Maybe just using smoke to look for leakage in duct systems, or maybe using an infrared camera today where you can spot it. Most HVAC companies have an airflow capture. This can be used as a tool to look for airflow, and then maybe even getting as far as a duct tester so that you can actually test the duct leakage the system has. But add something to your business on this so you can get a better handle of what's going on with those ducts. See, when I have duct leakage in a home, we get a lot of complaints, and the impact that it has is great. Well, first off, let's take a look at what the Department of Energy said. They say that a typical duct system loses somewhere between 25 to 40% of the energy. I'm not talking efficiency, I'm talking energy. So if I had that 3-ton air conditioner and I just lost 25%, okay, I'm losing right around 9,000 BTUs, 10,000 BTUs of the air conditioner that was designed to come to the home, but I'm losing it to the outside. It didn't make it there. When I'm doing training, I always kind of attribute it to like buying a car. I mean, imagine buying a brand new car and being told, well, hey, this car gets 25 miles a gallon, but the fuel tank, when you put 20 gallons in, understand that 25% of that fuel never gets to the engine. It's going to drop to the street. I mean, that would be unacceptable. But that's what happens when I put an HVAC system in the home brand new, and I don't look at this duct work. In many cases, I can do that or even greater. Now, they say that duct systems in basements may lose a little bit less. There's some argument on that, okay? And I will say that maybe I don't spend as much money, but there's other issues that can happen. But duct systems in attics, when it's hot, duct systems in attics where it's humid, the combination of the two, you can lose more. Well, we've got duct systems across this country in attics. We've got them in basements, and we have in crawl spaces. Until I really measure that duct system, I really don't know what's going to happen. But on the other hand, I can hear complaints, okay? So the impact that duct leakage has in houses in the summertime are people complaining about hot rooms. It never cools down. My family room is so hot in the summertime, we have to go to a different room to be able to watch TV. Number one common complaint that I hear across this country, anywhere though, is a 2-story home with a basement. Man, it is so hot in that second floor. My first floor, I set that thermostat down to 70, but it never gets below 78. My second floor is running in the 80s, but you guys ought to go to the basement. You can hang beef down there. So that's a big complaint that I get in the summertime. Of course, we get the opposite in the winter. We get houses that feel cold or drafty. Sometimes people complain about dust. I got a lot of dust in this house, or this one particular area of the home has got a lot of dust happening in it, and other IQ issues like odors or maybe the fireplaces. I can smell it in the summertime. Those are issues that are all being created by duct leakage in many cases. And understanding how we can test and look for that can help solve those problems. Now, utility bills. A lot of people do pay more money for utility bills than they really should. Of course, when I don't get the energy there, I also take the efficiency and dump it to the same spot. But another issue that happens, and maybe in your own business, you've had technicians say something along the lines. I asked the homeowners what they thought of their new HVAC system we put in. And they say, you know what? I mean, the guy that came out was really good. It does heat and cool. I won't say it doesn't do that, but he told me I was going to save energy by putting this in. And I got to tell you, I didn't really see that. Or sometimes you get the complaint where they just said, you know what, I wish I had my old one back, at least it worked. So these are things that happen in homes, and you have to understand these problems are real. But the good news is today, a contractor who becomes a duct expert has the ability to fix them and can solve these problems by sealing and or repairing the ducts in the home. Now we have different types of duct leakage. We have duct leakage to the outside. This causes my energy loss. Again, I'm not talking so much efficiency. I'm talking about the BTUs that are designed to come to the house are being lost through duct leakage to the outside. Of course, when I do that, I lose some efficiency. And if it's on the supply side, I will make my house go negative. Okay, I'm losing it to the outside. Outside air comes back in to make up for it. Now I have duct leakage to the inside. This is going to give me room imbalances like that basement too cold, okay? Maybe air balancing from one side of the house to the other. Both need to be dealt with. But if I'm going to talk about energy, any kind of savings, the biggest bang is going to come from the duct leakage to the outside. Now, why this is such a big deal? Because all duct systems have holes. You take 2 pieces of pipe and you put them together, it's going to leak. And it always happens at the worst time of the day. I mean, I need a furnace early in the morning when it's cold. Or maybe that air conditioner really needs to be on when it's getting hot late in the afternoon around 3:30 or 4. And if I lose that conditioned air to the outside, in the summertime, I bring in the hottest air possible. And in the wintertime, I bring in the coldest. And in some cases, I bring in humidity, depending on where we live in this country. Now, this is what I call as diffuse duct leakage. Of course, that might takeoffs, dovetails or spin-ins that were put in incorrectly. Maybe I've got a Pittsburgh seam. I got to tell you guys, I never thought they leaked. So I put it underneath mechanical pressure and I saw it. I could see the air moving out by using smoke or an infrared camera. But then we have the elbows. All those gores are going to leak. At any connection, whether it be flex duct, duct board, or sheet metal, when I join ductwork together, we're going to have some type of leakage. And over the length of that duct system, all this little diffuse duct leakage starts to add up. But of course, we then find out that sometimes it just falls off. In attics, in crawl spaces, we're not the only people that get in there. Sometimes it just gets pulled apart. But man, I've actually seen it in basements where I don't know what happened. Just for some reason, that elbow coming off the top of the trunk line just isn't connected to that run out that goes to the basement or to the second floor. So we have to look for disconnected ductwork as well. But in addition to that, our biggest challenge is this one right here. For years, now parts of the country are changing, but for years, we have built homes out there and we never use ductwork. We actually use the cavities of the home. And man, when we do that, we can get air from wherever we can find it. The picture on the far left here is actually one that I was with. This is going into a crawl space, and the air, I could actually take my hand from that crawl space and reach right up inside here. So a combination of the air that went back from my return came from the house, but then some came out of the crawl. This causes problems. All of this type of leakage has to be fixed as we go through the homes out there. Now, I hear a lot of people, and some of you may be on this call today, say, but yeah, I got basement duct system. What's the big deal there? Well, if I have duct leakage on the supply side, just like it being an attic being lost to the outside, the duct leakage is now going to go to the basement, which causes the overcooling problem. I don't get the air to the second floor. On the return side, it can make a house go negative, okay? Possibly I could backdraft a gas appliance if I've got one down there. But in some cases, I can bring in humidity. You know, my unfinished basement, if you look around the top of the concrete, you got what's called a sill plate up there. And those are not normally sealed. Well, with a negative pressure in that basement due to the return, what I can do is bring in air, and that can be a big issue as well, okay? This is actually a case study of a house that one of our clients did a number of years ago. This is out in Wheaton, Illinois. The complaint was that he wanted to replace the furnace and the air conditioner in his house, and he wanted to put in bigger ones because when it ran in the summertime, the second floor was so hot, okay? He actually had a 20-degree spread. Now, the contractor here put some data loggers in just to verify, but it got to be 83 degrees upstairs when it was down to 63 degrees in the basement when the air conditioning ran. All he did was come in and hand sealed just the ductwork he could get to. There was some that was behind the walls, of course, going up. Some in the areas of the basement that were finished he couldn't get to, so he got to all the ductwork he could, and he hand sealed it. There was a couple of issues up in the attic that he also had to take care of, but overall, most of it was just sealing ductwork he could get to. After he got done, he was able to get that to a 3-degree split. So yes, we can fix ducts, okay? And we can make people a lot happier with the homes that they live in if we understand how it works and where do we have to approach it at. But there's other issues we have to deal with, okay? We get room imbalances and closing doors off. Typically, homes with central returns have this issue. Other odd situations can happen as well. We have poor duct insulation, and we're going up from R4 to R6, and now we're at R8, mostly in unconditioned areas, but in a lot of cases I've seen where it makes sense to insulate the air because it's got a long run to keep the temperature up. I look for very low airflow. It's kind of funny that most of the systems out there today, believe it or not, are below the amount of air that's required for the heating and cooling system. If I have that problem, okay, we sometimes think we can overcome it by putting in an ECM variable speed blower. Not going to say it doesn't help, but in that case, what happens many times is we'll drive the wattage up. We'll cost more money through high static pressure that's being created. High velocity in a duct system when it's undersized with a variable speed can give me a lot of noise, so we look for that issue. And the fact that no test and air balance was ever done. I was attending a conference a couple of years ago, and there was a gentleman speaking, and he said that over 80% of the homes out there have never had a load calculation done. I'm not going to say he's right or wrong, but I will tell you from what I've seen out there and the fact that many homes don't have balancing dampers in there, I have to think that without doing a load calc, proper load calc, and adding balancing dampers in there, no test and air balance was actually done at the time. So, you know, I've seen that, and I'm sure most of you have as well. So let's take a look at what happens when I've got duct leakage. Now, this is what it's supposed to look like. In this case here, I've got 1,000 CFMs of air going in through a return, pushing 1,000 CFMs down through the coil. This little 2.5 ton. We've got 400 CFM per ton here, and then pushing it through the supply duct and then putting it back into the home. This house is running at a neutral pressure. But when I change that, okay, when I start putting in duct leakage, I affect on how the house is going to work. So I still have my 1,000 CFMs of air going in because that's what the return does. I push it through the equipment. In this case, it pushes 1,000 out of the equipment into the duct, but only about 300 of it got lost into the crawl space. So the delivery of that air was only 700. This area right here makes my house go negative. I'm going to make up for that 300 CFMs of air that I lost because that's going to require 1,000 CFMs. So if we look at my model house here, you can see I've got a blue flap on the right and a red flap on the left. If I look at how this house operates with supply duct leakage, you'll see both of those flaps come inside because we're looking for the air that we lost into the attic space. Now, what else comes in with that air? Well, in the summertime, dust and allergens from the attic and heat, humidity, cold air, dry air, of course, backdrafting of gas appliances and fireplaces if they're in closets or basements, that can all happen. But you know, it's funny, I was doing some training for a contractor who lives in an area where it's kind of humid. And he said, if you could tell a homeowner what was the #1 reason that you want to seal ducts in your house, would it be energy? I said, no. He said, would it be comfort? I said, no. The #1 reason is that 100 CFM of duct leakage can add over 10 to 15 gallons of water a day to a home, depending on where you live at. And we have to somehow deal with it. Our newer high efficiency equipment, while it works a lot better than the older stuff, did change on how we pull moisture out of the air. It's designed for long run periods. We got to get it to steady state, but we got to make sure that we don't add any outside air back in. So my #1 reason for any company to seal ductwork up, when we live in an area where humidity is part of our equation in the summertime, it's all about the moisture. Now, what about the return side? Okay, return leaks can be somewhat kind of confusing at times. They can make the house seem like it's less dusty, but other issues might arise. So in this case here, my 1,000 going in is being added by 300 from the attic, delivering 1,300 CFMs, and I blow the house up like a balloon. So why is that an issue? It's because of where that 300 CFMs is coming from. In the case of my model house here again, I'm pulling it out of an attic. So the attic now becomes negative, while the house down below becomes positive. And we can actually see it in many cases where the air is being drawn in. And of course, that air is fouled, okay? And if I've got filter grills on it, it bypasses those. And what it then can do is get into my equipment. So it fouls up coils, it fouls up blower motors, and causes problems from that aspect. And so return duct leakage is something we look at as well. When I seal ducts, I don't just seal supplies. I seal both supply and return. Now, some of you guys who live in areas where you've got pan floor joists, okay, very hard in many cases to seal up all those pan joist bays. I mean, I can seal the trunks down there, that's not a problem. But even when I'm all done, what I find is that house can be still running in the basement area at a negative pressure. I get the big holes, I can find those, okay? Many cases I can seal up around that panning, but I'm still gonna find that that basement's running out of a negative pressure. When that happens, in areas where I've got high humidity outside, I bring it in, and this is where I get the complaint of people saying my ductwork sweats. I've never seen it happen before, what's going on? Well, I sealed my supplies up, but I didn't get a good job on my returns. So now my house is going to a negative pressure in the basement. What do I do here? Well, I could try and seal more, but that's a lot of time trying to get to every little crack. The biggest thing that I can do there is just get rid of that negative pressure by creating some type of a communication. I mean, as simple as just putting a grill in the doorway. There's other things that I can do as well, but if I make communication between that basement and that first floor, then that negative pressure goes away. So I seal those basement ducts as best as I can, make communication between the basement and the first floor, and problem solved. I won't have that issue going on. Now, let's talk about something called air changes and infiltration in homes. Every house has got to have a certain amount of air for us to have good indoor air quality, get rid of VOCs, of course, and the air that comes in needs to be clean and fresh, okay? Air coming in is called infiltration. Now, the pressures that drive it, okay, are things like wind and stack effect. Now, these are all natural. I can't control it, and they happen daily, sometimes more, sometimes less, but we have to be aware this is going on. And so they took 160 homes down in Florida and they looked at these houses just to see how many air changes were happening in a home with just the natural air changes that we get through wind and stack effect. Of 160 homes, they found that they were changing the air 0.3 times per hour. So think of it, if you had a 2,000 square foot home, a third of the air in that house would be removed and replaced every hour. And over a 24-hour period of time, it would be roughly about 8.4 times. Now, what they did after that, though, is they went ahead and they took the natural driving force and added to it a mechanical driving force with an air handler and duct leakage. Now, by looking at it that way, we went to 1 air change per hour, which was a 325% increase in just the ductwork alone. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that, look, if I'm taking the air and changing it 0.3 air changes, it's going to, A, cost me less to heat and cool, okay? B, it's going to be easier to humidify and dehumidify. But if I add duct leakage to the equation, I got 1 air change per hour, which is 24 air changes in a day. That's going to be harder for my equipment to deal with. But then they took the next step and they looked at the air handler running with natural driving forces, and they just started closing doors off in the house. When they started closing doors off, they found that the house now went to 2 air changes. This was a 600% increase over just natural air changes in the home. This is a closed loop system. I put air into a room, I got to take it out. So what happens if I don't have a way to take the air out? The room builds up to a positive pressure. Any hole, okay, like a recessed can lights or maybe around a window, air gets pushed out. The main body of the house, it's going to have to find that air. So that part of the house goes negative, and we start to increase the air changes in the home. So take a look at my house here again. I got my flaps, got a door that I can close, and you can see the bedroom here goes positive, and the main body of the house goes negative. So understanding that this happens means that I can come in and solve the problem. I mean, something as simple as a jumper duct, okay, or through the wall, some type of a bypass. All I got to do is get the air that came out of that supply register and go through the back out to the return. So that can be a very simple repair. On the other hand, maybe because I got high static pressure, maybe adding an active return might be a better way to go. That way I can do 2 things at the same time. I can lower the static and I can get air from multiple portions of the house. I can put one in every room if I needed to. So active returns, jumper ducts are definitely a way that we can help solve issues in houses, okay? So I would have to admit, after looking at this, you probably would agree with me that, well, we know if we take 2 pieces of pipe and put them together, they're gonna leak, okay? We know that it should be fixed, it should be solved, but then we gotta sell it to somebody else. It's called a homeowner, okay? We gotta get them to buy into this. So what we have to be able to do is demonstrate duct leakage to them. Our biggest challenge out there is that we're selling something that's not a commodity, okay? It's not something I can see, touch, play with, show to my friends, or have fun with on a weekend. That's a big problem. Our other problem is we're kind of technical about the whole thing. And by rights, we are selling something that's blue sky. I can't see air and how it moves. So years ago at Retrotech, they taught me how to start looking at airflow in houses. And what we had to do is make it something that I could see. So they came up with a device called the Retrotech smoke buffer. It's no longer being made anymore. One of the best devices I've ever used in the past, but today we have to have different ways to make that smoke move. Or make that air move and see it. So I got to create it visibly. In other cases, sometimes I may have to demonstrate it. There's just no silver bullet on how I'm going to do that. So depending on the homeowner, maybe demonstration will be fine. Maybe measuring it would be a good way to go, or in some cases, maybe having to do it both ways. So first off, let's look at how we're going to make air visible. Here's some options for smoke. The one on the far left is called a dragon puffer. Low VOCs, non-toxic. In fact, it's an oil, the same oil that we used to use in they still use it, I'm sure, but in the little toy trains, you pour that oil down the smokestack and turn on the electricity in there. It heats it up and it creates smoke out of that engine. Works well. My issue with it is it does leak a little bit. So that is a little bit of a problem. The one in the center is a powder. It's called a wind indicator. If you're a hunter and you use a bow, you might even have some in your hunting gear. But this is just a little powder that you can spray. Hunters use it to see which way the wind is blowing, so they can adjust for their arrow. I can do the same thing in the house. I can look for duct leakage. I think my favorite on this page, though, is a device called a smoke pen. It's just a mechanical style pencil. You take a wick and you slide it down inside there, Again, no toxins. You light it, let it burn for about 25 seconds and blow it out, and you'll get a continuous stream of smoke coming off of that wick for a minute to two. And it's a good demonstration tool. Another device that I ran into about 2 years ago was a device called a Cirrus wind indicator. Again, another hunter's type product. Now this one uses like a vape, okay? And what it does is it has that little device that screws down inside, has batteries that's rechargeable, and you push down the trigger on the left there, and you pump on the handle on the right there at the same time. It creates a small vapor of smoke coming out. Now there's two models of it, one with a light and one without. If you decide to go this way, you get the one with the light, because sometimes it's hard to see when you're down low to the ground. The light makes the smoke a lot more visible. But I will tell you that if my business was to make smoke, this would be a device that I'd go with. This is called the Tiny S Smoke Generator. This is a handheld fog machine. Now we've used fog machines for looking at duct leakage as a great demonstration tool for years. Put it in through some type of pipe going into supply and then pressurize that duct. And man, I'll tell you what, you can fill a house with that fog. But using it in the smoke generator, the Tiny S, what it does is it gives a continuous amount of smoke coming out. It makes it very easy for me to be able to find the leaks and to be able to demonstrate to the homeowner. We've got quite a few customers that have purchased these, and they're finding that these work really, really well. When you buy the package, it comes with everything that you're going to need. The generator, it comes in with 6 vials of smoke that you can, or vials that you can fill with the ointment, rechargers, and 2 heaters. So this is a great product that can be used. The only con on it is a little on the expensive side, but man, I'll tell you what, it doesn't take long to pay it back if you're generating smoke every day and you're selling duct repairs. My understanding is, in fact, I just got a picture yesterday sent to me. The RetroTech, however, is now coming up with their own, and it'll be a price point of about half. This has a retail price of $950. I know it sounds expensive, but it really, if it can help you sell more work, it's not all that much. But my understanding with the RetroTech, it may be a price point of maybe 50% of that, or a little bit less. Look for that come around September with this thing going on with quarantining. The manufacturers that make the parts for the pieces of it have had to be shut down. So it's a mold injection system, but they're kicking back up to gear, and they hope to have these ready by September. So keep an eye out for that. Picture of it looks great, and with any of the other products that RetroTech makes, they make a great product out there as well. Now, how I'm going to do this, okay? I'm just going to take it over to a duct. If I'm in a basement and I got S and drives, on the supply side, you'll see the smoke being pushed at you. Just use the air handler. I mean, it's a simple tool in a simple way of demonstration. But unfortunately, sometimes these leaks can be in areas that maybe I don't want to crawl into, or I don't want the homeowner going in. So I can use the air handler. I can use the smoke. I've always told guys to take pictures of it. But today, moreover, I think use your video camera and take a video of that smoke moving. And then when you take it and use a video camera, just don't take a still or a silent movie. You got to talk to it, kind of get excited about the fact that you've got duct leakage and you're looking for these issues, and man, you're able to solve the problem that these people brought to your attention. So that works well. Now, some of you guys out there may have had old blower doors, been kicking around for years, and you're always thinking, God, I got to get this thing out of it's up in the attic of the shop, or maybe it's up in the rafters, and maybe I should sell it. I'm going to tell you, if you want to demonstrate duct leakage, this is probably by far the easiest way to do it. Not only can the homeowner see the leakage, but a lot of times they can feel it, or they can smell it when it comes into the home. So I'll paint this picture for you. I've got a return. This is on a concrete slab. The back of that is underneath the staircase, and they gave me a chase that goes all the way up through 2 floors and into the attic. Then they've got return flex going from the top of the return duct here, which is just a chaseway, over to the equipment. I've got the air handler turned off. I've got all the interior doors open, so every supply is talking to the return. I put the blower door in the front doorway of the house, and I turn it on. Again, this is closed loop. No air should be moving, but if I take that smoke and I put it in front of that return grill, as it pours back in, it's the biggest and quickest demonstration of duct leakage I've ever found. So I can use it on both supply and return. So maybe you got an old blower door and you want to demonstrate duct leakage. All you got to do is turn it around, put the house underneath the negative pressure, and don't even use the rest of the blower door for anything other than moving air. and it's a great tool for doing that. Now, can you measure duct leakage with a flow hood? Now, I will say that I can measure airflow, and I don't mind using it as a good demonstration tool to show them they have lack of airflow, okay? The problem is when I try to compare the two, and it's a function of the flow hood and the inaccuracy of it. Now, they say that flow hoods have an inaccuracy of 5 up to about 15%, but I will tell you that in residential, I've seen it greater, and it's not that the flow hood's off, it's how we push the air into the registers. And when we got high velocity coming in, sometimes we get some pretty funny numbers. Also, if you've got duct leakage on both supply and return, you can be fooled because it won't show you anything. You can't confirm it tight when you're testing out. And the big thing here, it does not conform to the industry standards like SMACTA, ACC, IQI spec. But I'm not going to put the device down because it is a great tool to at least compare. I got a 3-ton system. I'm looking for 1,200, but I've only got 600 CFMs coming in. This is something that we need to go look for further and figure out what's happening. So it helps me generate maybe that the next step, more testing to figure out what's going on. Now, some other tests that you can do. Old blower door test, what's called a subtraction. Do a test with the ductwork open and tape it off. The difference between the two is supposed to be duct leakage. They quickly found out that that wasn't the best test in the world, but it does come up with a number. However, you couldn't use it for a program. Some guys for testing, which can't be used in programs, but it's called a dominant duct leakage test. They just take a manometer and they see if the house goes positive or negative with the air handler on. Now, I still use that test to determine sometimes problems that are happening in the home. Is the return a bigger issue or the supply? But for actually giving me a number of duct leakage, it's not a great way to do it. What I can do is a blower door with a flow hood. That gives me an accurate measurement of duct leakage to the outside. Or I can use what's called a duct air tightness tester. All these different ways do demonstrate that I've got leakage, but only the bottom two here are ones I can come up with an actual number. So when it comes to sealing ducts, what's the best way? Well, years ago, when I got involved with Retrotech, we used to use mastic, okay? Mastic comes in a tub, comes in a caulking tube, and basically what we would do is we'd go around the ductwork, and anywhere we could get to it, we'd go ahead and put it on. We used to put it on a brush and paint it on. Sometimes we called it the Braille technique, where you put it on your hand, you reach up inside. Here's the problem though. It's hard to get to every joint. I mean, we know that. We've been in attics, crawl spaces, you can't get to the top, you can't get underneath it. Sometimes even in basements, you just can't reach it. What about the stuff that's behind the walls? I mean, if I got a basement duct system, I get ductwork that goes up inside the sheetrock there, I'll never get to that. Very time consuming at the end of the day, okay? I'd seal as much as I possibly could. And if I could take you from 50 square inches down to about 25 square inches, man, I got to tell you, I felt like I did a great job. But that was all day long and very, very messy, okay? I'm not going to say that you still can't do that, but you have to understand when you run up against that, that's what you're going to come in with. And here's the thing, if you're in an area where codes now are asking you to meet, okay, or beat those codes, in many cases, the first attempt will fail. And that's simply because we just don't test at the same time. So that's where Aeroseal comes into play. I mean, I'm going to tell you, it's the future of duct sealing out there. It's funny because back in about 1997, I was speaking at a conference down in Sacramento, California. And I met a gentleman who came to the conference and he introduced himself to us. He knew Retrotech and actually the president of the company knew him as well. But he came up and he introduced me to a brand new concept they had developed, and he called it Aeroseal. And I will tell you, I looked at him and I still remember this like it was yesterday. It was in Sacramento. And I said to him, I said, you know what, you've made the silver bullet for the HVAC industry. I mean, what a way to get in and make sure our duct systems are tight. I'll tell you, it's the safest, it's the most effective way of sealing ductwork. It's a patented proven technology. It's been around for over 20 years. We've stress tested up to 40. And here's the thing, if you got duct systems in a home, everybody needs it. Sure, just from a standpoint of solving problems, yeah, but how about delivering the airflow? It does a great job of doing that for me. It gets to the root of the IAQ issue, and it becomes a permanent solution, not like duct tape that can fall off. Guys, I've never found a single product that can deliver the benefits that Aeroseal actually can, especially when it comes to comfort, air quality, and energy efficiency. It seals ductwork from the inside. You don't have to do it on the outside. It gets to it all, even that ductwork that's inside the sheetrock. Now, we can seal anything smaller than 5/8 of an inch. If it's bigger than that, we're going to have to do some sealing work to bring it down. And of course, in codes, it'll pass it on the first attempt. And throughout the time that we're sealing, we're monitoring, and when we're all done, we can print out a certificate. I'll give you the real quick way how it works. We prep the house. We block off the registers, the coil, and the fan. We don't want any air getting into the equipment. We don't want air getting into the home. My statement when I talk to contractors about this is I got 3 objectives: seal my duct, not put sealant into the equipment, and not put sealant into the home. So we block it off. We connect what we call lay flat tubing to the duct at an access point and attach it to the Aeroseal fan box. And we just started sealing these as a patented sealant that we have created through Aeroseal. So here I've got a little laptop computer. Today we use it wirelessly. It hooks to my fan box. When turned on, the sealant just goes down through the lay flat tubing, goes in through an access point. As it travels down the ductwork and it finds a hole, we call it a pressure drop, it will force its way through it, and it seals that hole from the outside in. Once the hole is sealed, it just keeps continuing on down through the ductwork. Once we're all done, we get it down to about 3 square inches, then the system will tell us that, we shut it off, and we put in water at the injection point to clean the injector, but we keep the fan on. Now the water evaporates before it gets to the ductwork. With that fan running, any of the sealant that's still in the duct system gets pushed out, any of the holes that we didn't get sealed up yet. So we'll actually take it from that 3 inches and drive it down even further. Like I say, we monitor it throughout the entire process, and then we're all done, we can print out a certificate. It's so much easier to do than hand sealing with ducts, the hand sealing our ducts. Now, do be aware, okay, that I'm a big fan of sealing ductwork, but I will tell you that when you seal ductwork, static pressure is always going to go up. Now, maybe just a little, and then sometimes a lot. So one of the things that we always encourage contractors is to measure static pressure, look at your velocity, evaluate airflow, take a look at the duct sizing. Because in some cases, what I realized that the only reason the system worked is because it leaked. If I go in and fix the ducts and seal them up, I couldn't cause other issues in there, especially when it comes to airflow and refrigerant charging. So in some cases out there, we're going to say that duct replacement maybe makes sense, or some modifications. But even if I put it in brand new, guys, I got to seal it. And I've never found a better way to seal it than the Aeroseal process. Now, I mentioned to you we could get some leads, okay? Real quick, I want to wrap up here. But here's the thing that I've always said. Our service department is the most underutilized lead generator. Guys, we're in homes every single day. We're doing maintenance or service. We teach our techs, okay? It's essential that we gather leads, and we give them a system in place to make them do that. I call it my 3 L's. My first L is to simply look around, okay? See where there's areas of problems that you might find in this home. Disconnected ductwork, discolored ductwork, undersized ductwork, ways that we can bring back leads to the business. Listen, so many times the homeowner will mention something to a technician, and either it gets missed or we just lost that lead. So the last L I have is to write it down, log it, okay? But that means that if the technician in the field is not good at selling, okay, and be aware, not every tech will be a salesperson for you, but every tech can follow a system. Have a dedicated person in-house. I call it an inside salesperson, or a CSA, customer service person. Follow-up is key. They can follow up on all the calls that were not sold or tried to be sold by the service tech who doesn't like to sell, and he can offer to do further evaluations. Boy, I'll tell you what, if you go after all these leads, okay, it makes a big difference. Let's just take a business that's got 2 techs, and I'm going to say they're only in 3 homes each day each. So that means those 2 technicians are going to be in 6 homes. If I do that 5 days a week, that's 30 homes. I do that 4 weeks in a month, that's 120 homes. And even if I just generated 10%, that's 12 leads, okay? Now, we're talking with our clients, we find that when they go in and they do testing or they do demonstration of the problems they find, they got 80% closing ratio. That means that 12 jobs, I get 9. Even if you don't like my number, just a little bit less might be, I mean, just think about it. Those are leads that are there, they're free. Take advantage of them. If I had those averages right there, I could add $324,000 to my business just by simply following the system from the houses that we're already in. But I don't want you to take my word for it, guys. I want to take the last 10 minutes here. I'm going to have a gentleman speak to. His name is John Barron. It's actually funny. I'm actually at his office today. John is passionate about home and duct performance contracting, and he has me come in a lot of times throughout the year. We live in the same town. John and I actually went to high school together, and he got involved in home performance back in 2012. He is an Aeroseal contractor, but he looks at the house as a system. And I've asked him to speak here just to let you guys know how this has actually changed his business, because he became a duct expert. John, if you're out there, go ahead and jump on in.
Yeah, Ken, and thanks everybody, whoever's out there listening. I do want to, at the beginning of this, just I know I get pretty excited, as you know, Ken, about this stuff. So I'll try to keep really respectful of our times here. But I wanted to let anybody out there listening know. So we're a company that's north of Seattle. We cover a 5-county area, and we went in business in 1972. And I bought the company as a family succession thing. I bought it in 1998. So I've been doing this about coming out of school about 40, almost going to be going on 42 years. But in any event, makes me kind of older to some and younger to some others. But in any event, as Ken said, in 2012, I'd gone to an industry meeting where I'd heard about this home performance, and just to let everybody know, this home performance building science, and I've been reading articles about it and that kind of thing, and being in the industry and coming through and doing the residential commercial, became the journeyman and running crews residentially, commercially, and then getting in sales and sales managing and then buying the company and blah, 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 and having a lot of pride about what we did. I'd come to the time in 2012 where, quite frankly, we figured out just about how fast we could put a system in and how low we could buy the pieces of equipment and how we could stage things for efficiencies. And I, quite frankly, just transparently to speaking to everybody out there is listening, is that, I, as a pretty passionate person about what we do and what I do in life, is that I've kind of really, I kind of had that passion kind of dwindle. We were successful, we were profitable, and we were had a good reputation and all those kind of things. But, I just kind of wondered, it's all about it is how fast you can put it in and how low you can buy equipment pricing and how efficient you can get. And so I went to this an industry trade show. I got to hear about it. I've been reading and doing studying on it. Quite frankly, I thought the whole thing was kind of a smoke and mirrors about this whole thing with building science and home performance. And it was just meant for people that weren't very good at installing systems. Well, man, was I ever going to get my eyes opened? So although I think we were the best at what we did based on without having this knowledge base and stuff like which I would get, in 2012, we decided to go to what's called a boot camp. And I'm not trying to sell that fact, but Ken actually was there. He was there with another trainer. It was a 5-day training, 4 days of training, and then there was some certification testing that happened on the 5th day. But I took 8 of our people. It's real serious. I took my business partner, I took a service manager, 2 of my superintendents, a couple top salespeople, myself, my sales manager, and we went down to this thing. And I got to tell you something. It just absolutely opened my eyes. I remember in the 3rd day driving back, and my business partner, he was a financial controller, CFO. And I remember, even though he's not the duct guy and all that kind of stuff, I remember him looking at me and saying nicely, and he said, "Man, John," he says, "what have we been doing?" And because we were really hearing transformational things about how we could look at a home and in terms of the challenges, truthfully about comfort and about health and about energy things. And so the whole paradigm deal, and basically what happened is that in that time of February in 2012, when we did that boot camp, I'm going to tell you something. I literally got like a fire lit under me that's never, ever left, period. I will share with everybody out there, feel free. Again, it's Barron Heating, Air Conditioning. This is John Barron talking. You see probably on the webinar panel. I will welcome anybody to call me at any time, and you can call in. I typically share my cell number. I'm 24/7. I'm passionate about what we do as an industry. I'm passionate about what we do for our customers. And I'll tell you what, I got on fire. I got a bunch of other people that got on fire. The only thing I'll tell you is that particular time we had about, we had probably about 85 people at the company at that time. And if I could have shut down the business and had everybody in the company go to that training, I probably would have. There were some smaller companies that actually did that, which is really, I was kind of jealous. I remember being down at the training. But we came out of that training. I'm not trying to sell the training aspect of this. I'm trying to let you know that there's a proper and a great way to do things to where you don't have to feel bad. So if you're already really good, you're passionate, whether it be from the service, from the ductwork side, from the new construction, from retrofit, whatever you come from, wherever you come to this industry in, there's a whole bunch of it in it for you regarding taking a look at things in the right way and doing things in the right way. So again, I could be here probably, this webinar is probably a little less than an hour long. I could probably be here a month talking to you about the different things, case studies that we've had happen. I mean, it is just the conviction level that it gives you when you're doing things in the way you do and doing them right, and just the knowledge base. So yeah, it just happened to be happenstance that Ken and I graduated the same high school together, and he was a couple of years older than me. Ken, no slight to you, but in any event, but anyhow, our paths would come together later on. It's kind of interesting how they would drift apart and then they would come together. I knew kind of some stuff he was doing, but again, I kind of thought he was in that smoke and mirrors, and for people who couldn't do it right. Man, was I ever wrong. And so we do things like never before, and we are serious as a heart attack in terms of getting after things and doing things in the right way. So I will share this with you, by the way. Comfort Institute / Aeroseal. Aeroseal and Comfort Institute merged. Just a little background. When I went down to the training, it was Comfort Institute. It had Ken, his partner, and Aeroseal, realizing they needed to be on the building science. And I love that about Aeroseal, knowing that they needed to be on the building science part of things. So to let you know, my first love and complete love is having to do with building science and having to do with home performance and what that does both residentially, commercially, and those lessons learned. I was about, I'd say, probably not quite 6 months in. And what happened with everything I learned, I started realizing it was really difficult to get a really good sealing on a lot of applications, especially in retrofit for sealing up ductwork. And so my addition of Aeroseal had to do completely, it is just one tool. And I'm not trying to minimize it because you guys are on a webinar for Aeroseal that merged with Comfort Institute. And man, they've had synergistic, really wonderful things they do together. But there's two things. And so the Aeroseal is really cool in the way that it seals up. And like I said, I could be here a month talking about that. But that is just, that's a tool to the global approach. I brought it on, the Aeroseal, because I needed the absolute best way I could get and most thorough way to get ductwork challenges sealed. And so that's why I brought on Aeroseal. I did it about 6 months after that we entered into home performance and performance, contracting. Again, just to let you know, the other thing I'll let you know is it really takes a commitment. So whoever's out there listening, if you're a sales manager or a service manager, you're the owner, you're doing all the above, just know that I'm going to really encourage, make sure you grab 2 or 3 other people that you have as you venture. If you're not already doing this, if you venture into this, make sure that you do it in a way where you have other people involved. I told you that we had about 80-some people. I took 8. If I could have waved my magic wand, wasn't possible, but I would have had everyone in my company would have attended. Because in the meantime, when we came back, we became the prophets, as you say, the ambassadors, to be able to go and try to make change. And we always talk about it's an evolution. It's not a revolution. So we had to be respectful about that. But we've really gained a lot of traction. As Ken knows, we've had multiple trainings throughout the years. We send our people to multiple trainings. We have some that we've had here. I'm pretty blessed and fortunate. I've Ken in my hometown. Although, Ken, I hardly ever get you because you're traveling all the time. But anyhow, but just to let you guys know, it's a game changer for Barron Heating. We're about 80% residential service and retrofit. And of that residential service to retrofit, about 20% service, and again, about 80% is installation. Of the installation side, 80% of that is retrofit, 20% is new construction. That's our model. And then we do some design build like commercial. We have a hydronic infrared radiant division. We've got a fireplace hearth division, and that kind of thing. We have about 150 people. I don't say that to brag, just to let you know we got a lot of different divisions and stuff like that. But in my history, just to let you know, in my history with this, I'm just going to let you know, and I mean this, I have never been more excited about what we do and how we do things and the results we get for our customers regarding comfort, health, and energy in terms of being a home performance contractor. And again, Aeroseal is a tool we use for sealing. So it's awesome. There's nothing else like it to seal up ductwork. So that's about it. But no, anybody can reach out to me. I'm available. And I'll make myself available anytime for anybody that wants to really be doing the right thing in this industry.
Thank you, John. In fact, guys, I'm sitting here looking at a poster for John's on, again, I'm at his location here, but Barron Heating and his mission. And what I love about his tagline, it's Barron Heating and Air Conditioning, and their mission is improving lives. And I know John's got the passion for that. And that's what he really finds home and duct performance contracting does. All right, Billy, I don't know how much time we have left here. But if you have any questions, go ahead and shoot me a few. Guys, I've got my contact information up here. Always feel free to reach out to me. You can text me, you can call me. I do, like John said, a lot of training, so sometimes I'm hard to reach, but leave a voicemail, I'll get back to you, or you can email me. If you're interested in knowing more about Aeroseal and you want to see if this is a great fit, or maybe you've already made that decision, contact Jared Scott. He's our National Director of Aeroseal. I've got his email up here as well, and that's his cell phone number, and he's more than welcome to take any calls that may come his way. So, Billy,
hey, Ken, I do want to share. I do want to share one other thing, Ken, if I could, real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to share the group. Just because of the fact I can't get you live to training here in your hometown, that was not a slide. I will tell everybody out there listening, one thing I love about Aeroseal and Comfort Institute and Ken is the fact that, and I mean this, Ken, I know you do this for everybody, how many times I've called and got you in an airport. I've got you when you just got off a plane. I've got you when you're just starting your dinner. I've got you in the early morning before you started training or on your break. I have appreciated this. I know you do. You not only do that for me, but you do that. You are passionate, Ken. I do appreciate that so much. I'm not doing a commercial on Ken, Summers, but I will tell you this. Just because I said I can't get you for live training as much, that's because you're out helping everybody else out in the nation. Thank you for always being able to take calls, and you always get back really fast if I have to leave a message. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Billy, do you have anything for me?
Yeah, there are a few in, and for anybody else out there, as we're going through this, if you want to ask those, we'll try to get over in the next couple minutes to get you all out of here. So Kevin would like to know, when you're showing and testing duct leakage, how do you feel about thermal imaging and infrared cameras? I know we touched on them a little bit, but in comparison to the rest.
I love thermal imaging cameras. I think today the FLIR 1 Pro is a great camera. I've been around thermal imaging since it first started becoming affordable. I remember the first one I ever sold was a $22,000 camera, but you can get a camera today that'll hook to your iPhone. It's in fact the one I carry. It's called the FLIR 1 Pro. It has a retail of $399, and it gives great pictures. It takes video. I think it's an absolute wonderful tool that we use in understanding how houses work. And I use mine all the time.
Chris, there's a couple of questions in here regarding Aeroseal. Chris is asking, what about duct cleaning and the use of Aeroseal? He's heard from different people that you can and then you can't because the product is tacky.
Yeah, so here's the thing, is that Aeroseal will seal a hole, okay? As long as you don't have filthy, caked on dirt that's 40 years old in there, some just normal build-up dirt and dust, we don't need to have it cleaned. We do, however, recommend it, okay? First off, from a standpoint of a homeowner, let's look at how they look at it. If I've got brand new clean ductwork and then I seal it, I'm going to have a better system in my home. So we do recommend that we do it from that standpoint. Not needed for just normal small amounts of dirt and dust in the duct, but if it's caked on ductwork, then of course you're going to want to clean it. That being said, if you've got ductboard or flex duct and you've got mold in there, we recommend replacing that ductwork before sealing. I was just speaking at NADCA, which is the Duct Cleaning Association of America, and they'll be the first to tell you we don't clean mold, we replace it. So hopefully that answers the question. We don't need it, but good to do as an add-on.
Okay. Kenny is asking, how large of a system can this handle? Is it based off tonnage or linear feet?
So we've got two different types of Aeroseal product machines. We've got what's called a home seal. That's the picture I had up there. That seals duct systems up to 5 tons. Okay, no problem. But if you got a bigger commercial work that you want to do, we recommend going into a different type of a machine. Jared can get you some better pictures of it and talk more about it. But that does commercial jobs. We've done hospitals, we've done universities across the country and even worldwide. So there isn't a building yet that I know of we can't seal. We may have to break it up into a couple smaller parts, but we can seal them all. But yes, commercial for the bigger buildings, residential, 5 5 tons, no problem whatsoever.
Okay. Well, otherwise, there's a couple other questions in here, but I know you have training to run off to with John actually, so we can follow up with those via email.
Sure.
Just keep in mind, there is a survey after this for all the attendees on the line. The first question is to put your BPI number in there for the CEU credits. So make sure that's filled out, and then we'll get you guys hooked up and everything with that. There's a small survey just to go through recommendations and things. If you guys have additional questions you think through afterwards that we can pass off. And otherwise, we thank you for joining us today and bid you farewell.
Thank you all for being here. And thank you, John.